eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.
What the hell is going on, you bunch of little weirdos? Brandon, with $40 before the show had even started. Brandon, thank you very much, my man. Can we see some love and hearts in the chat? I'm happy to see you all. I hope you're all doing well. We've got a little bit of a news show today, but it's kind of going to be a bit of a deep dive at the same time. Now, on the last show, there were some little audio issues with the microphone. Please let me know if that's a problem again today, because I'll try and fix it. But we've got a little bit more gain. Hopefully my microphone isn't too quiet, and we can have a nice, smooth, and exciting show. So today, you guys have probably heard, Ross Coulthart came out a few days ago saying that he believes the TicTac was made by Lockheed Martin. And then he's just come out yesterday saying that he also believes the New Jersey drone flap was China. That it was basically all China, and that there was other drones released to kind of combat that. I don't know. It's murky. That's what we're going to get into today, right? We're also... Oh, and let's just point out quickly while we're here, they're very contradictory statements, right? So the TicTac that was in 2004 was Lockheed Martin, but in 2024, 20 years later, China was putting these drones over America that we couldn't stop. But we had the TicTac technology 20 years ago. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. But that's what today is going to be all about. So it's going to be Ross Coulthart. We're going to be looking at the Matthew Livelsberger, the Cybertruck bomber who claimed that the drones were China. That was a really weird scenario. Green Beret, who allegedly blew himself up after making these claims 6 months ago. We're going to be looking at that. Candace Owens weighed in on this as well. She's great. She also referenced Ashton Forbes in her work. We're also going to be looking at the silent member of TTSA, which is Steve Justice, who worked for Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works. So we're going to take a quick look at him. And we are going to be finishing off today's show with the legendary Bill Cooper. Now, I've been wanting to do a deep dive on Bill Cooper for a while, and I think we will. But today, we're just going to have a little entree, a little Bill Cooper entree, all right? One last thing before we start the show. The S4 files, I'm going to say, are complete, okay? I've had a look through the rest of them. There's a little bit of stuff from John Lear. There's a couple of things, but I think the S4 series has run its course. I'm happy with it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you missed any of it, it's a playlist on the channel. But let me know what you guys think of that kind of content where we kind of just watch stuff and react to it together, because I really enjoyed it, and I hope you guys did too. And if you do, then we can sort of do more of those kind of like watch along / investigative deep dive shows, because they're a lot of fun and they're easy to throw together. So without yapping any further, let's get into it. So let's hop over to the Polarity TV. Oh, by the way, guys, Suki's here. I really need to, I want to move where it says Suki Cam because it's always blocking her face, but Suki is here tonight. Here she is. All right. So the first clip, let's hear from Ross, and then we'll make our way through the show from there.
The suggestion that is being put to me is that the Chinese have indeed made a huge advance in electrogravitic technology, and it's taken us by surprise, and that the United States has been caught asleep at the wheel. It was complacently, hubristically thinking that it was way ahead of its foreign adversaries. And in fact, the big show that took place, notably, I know it was reported mainly over New Jersey, I'm increasingly persuaded that the initial show, at least, was, in part, Chinese. And that what happened was the United States responded with technology of its own to muddy the waters. And so you've had this ridiculous situation where, if you believe it, and this is the implication not only from my Senator Mike Roun's interview, but also from the interview that General Glenn Van Herk, the former head of Northcom and NORAD, did to 60 Minutes Bill Whitaker a few months ago. They basically admitted that there's someone operating with impunity over the continental United States, flying so-called drone technology. These drones are not using known propulsion systems. They're not using jets. They're not using propellers. They're not using any kind of known turbine propulsion system that emits the kind of heat that we're used to from that kind of technology. The suggestion is they're using some type of electrogravitics. And my sources are telling me that the big story that, frankly, the US doesn't want you to know about right now, the story that's not being discussed in the media, is the implications of the admissions made by General Glenn Van Herk, in particular, to 60 Minutes, which kind of went through the gate and were largely ignored by most other media, but which I think are incredibly significant.
All right, I'm going to put up a poll here, and you don't have to answer it straight away, but I'm just going to be asking, do you think the drone flap was actually China? And then we're going to talk about it. All right, the poll is up. Do you think the New Jersey flap was China? It's weird, right? Because like I said at the start of the show, these statements are extremely contradictory, right? China is all over our news as propagated as like the enemy. Enemy number one, maybe enemy number two, whatever you want to call it, with Russia. So if the enemy is putting these ships or craft or drones or whatever we want to call them over your country, but 20 years ago, you had the technology to go from sea level to 80,000 feet in less than a second. You had the TicTac. I don't think those two things go together. They don't make sense. I'm interested to hear what you guys think, though. So far, 65% of you say no, it was not China. And I'm quite torn on it because I always felt there was something with the Cybertruck bomber. Like that, what happened with the Cybertruck bomber was too weird. And the way it just faded out into nothing was too convenient. Like they were happy for it to just kind of like go under the carpet. When in reality, a Green Beret, which is like a highly decorated patriot and servant of his country, just laid out a pretty wild statement and died with a bomb. And it was like, it couldn't get out of the news quick enough. That's sus. Okay, that's sus. I'm interested in what that person had to say. Now, this poll annoyingly clouds the chat box, so I'm going to end it, but we got a bit of a gauge there. 63% of you don't think that it was it was China, and like I said, I'd have to agree with you on that. So we're going to do a little overview now of the Cybertruck bomber. We've got the clip from the Sean Ryan show. Just quickly though, Mitchell has chucked in 15 and says, here's some coin towards your Area 51 holiday. Thank you, my man. I appreciate that a lot, and I'm looking forward to it. I cannot wait. All right, so this is the Sean Ryan show. We covered this earlier in the year. A lot of people did. It was very sus at the time. A lot of people were asking questions about Sean and the integrity of his show. But with 6 months of knowledge under our belt and further developing stories, let's see how we feel about it now.
Do you want to read the email?
Yep. So this email came in on December 31st at 10:42 a.m. That is Tuesday.
Ago. 7 months ago.
He said, in case I do not make it to my decision point or onto the Mexico border, I am sending this now. Please do not release this until 1 January and keep my identity private until then. First off, I am not under duress or hostile influence or control. My first car was a 2006 black Ford Mustang V6 for verification. What we have been seeing with drones, he puts that in quotes, he says drones, is the operational use of gravitic propulsion systems powered aircraft by most recently China and the East Coast, but throughout history, the US. Only we in China have this capability. Our OPSEN, that's Operation Center, our OPSEN location for this activity is in the box below. China has been launching them from the Atlantic from submarines for years, but this activity recently has picked up. As of now, it is just a show of force, and they are using it similar to how they use the balloon for SIGINT and ISR, which are also part of the integrated comm system. There are dozens of those balloons in the air at any given time. The so what is because of the speed and stealth of these unmanned aircraft. They are the most dangerous threat to national security that has ever existed. They basically have an unlimited payload capacity and can park it over the White House if they wanted. It's checkmate. U.S. government needs to.
And he's saying it's checkmate. Like China have this tech that they could, unlimited payload over the White House at any moment. It's checkmate. But again, this is contradictory. If we're following the line that Ross is saying, this is what we're assuming here. Ross said that the TicTac is Lockheed Martin technology, okay, which means the US. Well, again, and then it just gets into another conspiracy theory because it's like, right, are Lockheed Martin making this technology for the United States Air Force, or is this like actually some kind of breakaway civilization that has this technology that is operating beyond oversight, beyond the government? It's outside the law. Because like there are two different angles that people look at this stuff, right? Some people think if Lockheed Martin have it, then the United States have it as a secret weapon, and then other people are thinking, no, Lockheed Martin are making weapons and vehicles for a group that operates outside the government. Do you guys remember the video that I did on Don Phillips? Don Phillips was another skunkworks, not a whistleblower, but he was just interviewed in like the late 90s. And you can go back on the channel and look at it. It's a great clip. He says the CIA were our best customer. So the CIA were the best customer for the Lockheed Martin skunkworks. And he said something like, people think the United States have the best Air Force. And then he kind of laughs and he kind of gets cut off. But you can see in the context, he's saying, the CIA have the best Air Force. That's what he's saying. So like, yes, the TicTac probably is not inside the US military. It's probably like in the intelligence agencies, which Tim Taylor says a faction of them are above humans. There you go. It all makes sense. $8 from Richo. That Lou quote about 50 years to prepare for something has got me thinking 3-body problem thoughts. Yeah, it's an interesting quote, that one, Rich. I often refer back to that one in my videos. Think what you want about Lou, the sus group of CIA guys that just popped up on the scene, and we're going to look at them soon in today's show. But, they always say the truth is usually wrapped in lies. Therefore, there are elements of truth in what these guys are saying, but they are bending and twisting the story so it goes to like a safe place for them. But to get us on board with that, they're putting bits of truth in there, right? So it's just so confusing. Let's keep listening.
Give the history of this, how we are employing it and weaponizing it, how China is employing them and what the way forward is. China is poised to attack anywhere in the East Coast. I've been followed for over a week now from likely Homeland or FBI, and they are looking to move on me and are unlikely going to let me cross into Mexico, but won't because they know I am armed and I have a massive V-bid. Let me pause right there for a second. So he says a massive V-bid. When I was talking to the FBI yesterday, they didn't know what a V-bid was. I had to explain what that acronym meant, literally.
That's concerning.
You fucking serious?
Dead serious. I said it twice and he goes, you said that word V-bid. Can you tell me what that is? For your audience, a V-bid, for your audience who has not been in the GWOT for the last 20 years, a V-bid is a vehicle-borne improvised explosive device. In layman's terms, a car bomb, what we saw at Trump Tower. So, backing up, he says, I am armed and have a massive V-bid. I've been trying to maintain a very visible profile and have kept my phone, and they are definitely digitally tracking me. Here's where he gets into the other stuff, and this is where we had to redact the names. Well, your producer redacted the names. I have knowledge of this program and also war crimes that were covered up during airstrikes in Nimruz province, Afghanistan in 2019 by the admin, DOD, DEA, and CIA. I conducted targeting for these strikes of over 125 buildings. 65 were struck because of civcas, that's civilian casualties, that killed hundreds of civilians in a single day. U.S. FORA continued strikes after spotting civilians on initial ISR. It was supposed to take 6 minutes and scramble all aircraft in CENTCOM. The UN basically called these war crimes, but the administration made them disappear.
It's no wonder they were so happy for this stuff to just go under the carpet. Like, not only is this guy talking about China with like gravitic propulsion technology, but he's talking about war crimes. And I tend to believe people like this over people who are like propped up and doing podcast circuits and come from agencies that are actually responsible for the cover up in the first place. Like, I do tend to believe these people more, because what did he have to gain to say this? Nothing. He died. This guy died. So, you know, who are you going to believe? The guy getting paid on podcast circuits who worked for the CIA for 30 years? Or maybe the guy who died saying something? I don't know. Tenor from the Cookie, love from Texas. Usually I'd be lighting one up with my cat P-Shaw and watching your videos, but unfortunately I'm at work. That sucks, bro. Well, hopefully when you get home, you and P-Shaw can light one up together. Shout out to P-Shaw. And $10 from Elegant Paws, who didn't leave a message, but I appreciate you very much. And our newest weirdo, Stevie, my man, welcome to the Weirdos Club. Can we get some love and hearts for Stevie, please?
I was part of that cover-up with US FORA and Agent Redacted of the DEA. So I don't know if my abduction attempt is related to either. I worked with Redacted IO staff on this as well as the response to Bala Murghab. Redacted commander at the time, Redacted can validate this. You need to elevate this to the media so we avoid a world war, because this is a mutually assured destruction situation. Then he says, for vetting, my LinkedIn is Matt Berg or Matthew Livelsberger, an active duty 18 Zulu out of 110, that's 1st Battalion, 10th Special Forces Group. My profile is public. I have an active TSSCI with UAP, USAP access.
What is USAP? Do you know what that is?
I don't know what that is. But I checked his credentials on LinkedIn.
I'm pretty sure it's unacknowledged special access program, I think.
So that was the first thing I did. I went to his LinkedIn page. First thing I noticed was all of his bona fides were in place. He has all the UAS training from USASOC and everything else. And so I said, okay, at least the guy knows what he's talking about with drones. That was a very rough dig into the guy. But my issue was I couldn't validate or verify any of this information. And I told him that. And how I responded to him was in a subsequent email. I said, this is obviously a very big deal, but I don't have anything to verify this information with. Talking about gravitic propulsion systems without evidence just makes me another UFO talking head. Like, I'm not going to go on my social media page and start talking about UFOs and anti-gravity systems and everything. I don't know what you're talking about. I can't. And he said, can I get on Fox News Contact on Signal as well as Sean's show? Hegseth would be good too. That was his last message to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is, what is a gravitic propulsion system?
To be honest,
what is a gravitic propulsion? And Lucas, welcome to the Weirdos Club. And Hooch, 2 new weirdos. Lucas, I already thought you were a member, but either way, welcome, guys. Some love and hearts for our new weirdos. I've often thought about this, right? This whole gravitic propulsion thing, because I mean, obviously, we're talking about things we don't really understand when it comes to like anti-gravity technology, right? These are all kind of theories. But I feel like it all kind of gets lumped together. Like when we talk about 0-point energy, manipulating space-time, bending space and time, falling through space-time, like all of these terms get talked about when we talk about how these craft may function, right? But I think it makes sense that there's probably a ladder to it, like at the top is like a wormhole, a warp drive where you are in the moon, and then you're on Saturn in like a split second, like just a straight up wormhole. But then there's probably also like, I've heard the terms gravitic repulsion. Okay. So what you're actually doing is like repelling yourself off the Earth's natural magnetic field. That to me sounds like maybe the first rung on this ladder of technology. Okay. Potentially. Okay. I'm just theorizing here. But what I'm saying is like, yes, the idea of the United States having a wormhole technology is wild, and it might be true. Like if you believe the MH370 videos, it is true, okay, and it might be. But like at the very least, the fact that like Thomas Townsend Brown was deeply into studying gravity, there was the whole G engines article that came out in the 50s that just went silent. I think like us having gravitic repulsion or some like base level of this technology is, I mean, I don't want to say obvious because it's not obvious to the eye, but when you look into it, it is obvious, right? Again, the SR-71 was built in the 1950s. Do I need to say it louder for the people at the back? The SR-71 Blackbird that looks like an alien spaceship pretty much was built in the 1950s. Okay? Okay. So let's listen to Candace Owen, who is just absolutely based, weigh in on this, and Ashton Forbes. It's really good. Check it out.
And it did just seem like people were really just attacking Sean Ryan for what was actually a very interesting piece of journalism. And I'll tell you why I found this to be an interesting piece of journalism. You guys might recall that I had on Ashton Forbes. And if you haven't watched an episode, that you should, like what happened to MH370, that plane that disappeared. And one of the things that he spoke about, and I was not educated about this whatsoever, was he was essentially saying that the government was hiding technology. The exact same thing that is in this email that he alleges was sent to him from Matt Leibelsberger. And essentially what Ashton Forbes was saying is that there is there is 0-point gravity that exists, that they are able to manipulate gravity. And specifically, Ashton Forbes was saying that it was this war between China and the United States, that that our government has had this technology and has been hiding it from the public from a very long time. And so now you have an entirely unrelated situation that has nothing to do with MH370, nothing to do with Ashton Forbes. And this person is emailing to allege the same thing. I think that we should look further into that. I don't think this should just be routinely dismissed. I don't think there would be any reason for Sean Ryan to engage in fraud on the public. He's at the top of his game, the top of his podcasting game. And from every angle that he and his producers looked into this email appeared to be legit. And so I'm not going to trust a bunch of people in the intelligence community essentially coming out and saying this email is not legit or this isn't real. I would rather trust internet sleuths who are very good at determining what is and is not real and understands that our government has been invested in hiding these sorts of things for a very long time by calling everybody crazy. And I would also like to trust decorated vets who put their lives on the line for this country above trusting the people that would let them die in a war tomorrow.
Candace Owens is so legit. Honestly, I really like Candace Owens. I really do. $5, Jay Varga. I think the US thought only they had this tech. Then China did some posturing by launching all those drones. Nah, bro, we got this too. Yeah, I think it could have definitely been a message. And again, like Candace said, I'd prefer to listen to these people who have literally put their lives on the line and lost them. I would prefer to listen to those people than the ones who are from the CIA getting paid to be on podcast circuits. And Stevie, my man with a 15, says that guy sacrificed himself on the altar of humanity for all to see, and the book writing podcast attending crowd are protecting sources. If they truly cared about humanity, exactly, mate. Basically echoing pretty much what I just said. We're on the same wavelength there, Stevie. So it's interesting, right? That this is going back. If we refer to Ashton's research, and he is very much of the idea that, or of the thinking that MH370 was, I mean, probably not the beginning, but a big move in this power struggle between China and the United States, and with something to do with technology. Let's not forget that there were like 20 high-level scientists on board that plane. There's a lot of sus things around that. And then you've got this Green Beret talking about war crimes and echoing the sentiment, dies, and it is just swept under the rug. And let's not forget that, like, within a week, the FBI, I'm pretty sure it was the FBI, came out and said, we can confirm that email from Matthew Livelsberger, the one that we just heard read out, is real. Like, the FBI said it's real. So, like, when they did that, a normal person is then expecting them to, like, continue investigating. Like, okay, great. You figured the email out. You figured out the email is real. What's next? What are you going to tell us next? Nothing. Radio silence. It's like, okay, then. I guess we should just go watch football or something, right? That's what we're meant to do. Just pay attention to, like, football and shit like that. That's what you want us to do, right? We got another clip from Candace here. Let's check this out.
These allegations about the government being able to manipulate gravity and having that technology and lying about it to the public have been going on forever, since before you were probably even born if you're listening to this podcast. And I want to bring to your attention, I actually should have told the producers to pull this up, but there was a guy named Milton William Cooper, okay, or otherwise known as Bill Cooper. And he was an American who served in the military. He was also decorated. He was a sergeant. He did tours in Vietnam. He received 2 service medals, and he worked in naval intelligence. And he came out and he wrote a book. And I have not read the entirety of the book. I just actually read the first 2 chapters. It's on my list of books that I wanted to get to. But he essentially, the book is called Behold a Pale Horse, throwing that to Revelations in the Bible. And he, before it ever happened, predicted that there were going to be school shootings. The government was involved in psychological experiments. In the book, he described HIV and AIDS as man-made diseases used to target specific groups like blacks and Hispanics and homosexuals, and that they had the cure before they had even allegedly made HIV and AIDS. And he was considered completely crazy. Like, this was going on in the 70s. And he also said that the government had this sort of 0-point gravity technology that they could use, and that when he was serving, he saw it with his own 2 eyes, and that after they had used this UFO, if that's what you want to call it, in front of them, they were all screamed at and basically told that they would be killed if they ever spoke about it. So for so many people over the course of so many decades to be saying the same thing, and for these people to be in the military and to be decorated, I struggle to dismiss them after having read books like Chaos and recognizing just how far and through what lengths our government will go through to protect secrets and to manipulate the public and to keep themselves in power while keeping the rest of the public dumb and deluded.
So this is why we're going to have the little entree, the little Cooper entree at the end of the show today, because he gets the mention there from Candace Owens. And, I've not gone super deep myself on Bill Cooper, but I know who he is and I've seen some of his stuff and it's super interesting, right? I'm sure you guys would know more than me, didn't Bill Cooper, like Alex Jones, also predict 9/11? Maybe not to the same specificity, not with the same detail that Alex Jones did, where he literally said exactly what was going to happen and who they were going to blame it on. But he predicted it to some degree, right? So again, and he also died mysteriously, like a lot of them do when they say certain things. So you've got this guy who has said, America does X, Y, Z. They're going to do this. These things come true. The things he's saying they've done have come to light. And again, it's like with Phil Schneider. It's like with these other whistleblowers, okay, who at the time, let's use Phil Schneider as an example, was saying all of these things about deep underground military bases, aliens in the military, and all this wild shit. But then as time goes on, now 70% of the stuff that he said is kind of understood. People are like, yeah, okay, there are deep underground military bases everywhere. That's not a conspiracy theory. So it's okay, now a bunch of the stuff he said has come true. Are we still going to keep ignoring the rest of the stuff that he said and pretend it's just bullshit until it actually comes true? Or are we just going to take some initiative and maybe listen to the people who have had wild character assassination attempts on their name? Because, Eric Hecker, the Antarctica whistleblower, he had a really good quote where he says, these intelligence agencies set up people on each side. They set up margins. So you've got CIA agent here and CIA agent here, both pointing the finger at each other, saying, you're wrong, you're wrong. This is the true story about UFOs. No, this is the true story about UFOs. And Eric Hecker says, as long as the mainstream discussion stays inside that margin, the intelligence agencies win. So I like to look at people who aren't on the podcast circuit, people who are outside of those margins, people who get their character assassinated for talking about things like David Icke. Yes, I know, pretty controversial. That might bother some people. I don't really care because I like the way he looks at things. Maybe his modern takes are a little bit filtered through a political lens, which kind of sucks. But I think those are the people we should listen to, because why do people try and ruin their character so much? It's because they're saying things that they don't want you to listen to. Okay? Because when you go into the city and there's some homeless dude who looks like he just came out of Jumanji yelling on the corner, telling you that everyone is Satan and some wild shit. Yeah, they're not trying to stop you listening to him. They don't care because he's just talking shit. But when David Icke starts saying things, they shut him down. If he's just talking shit, why do you care? Right? So let's get back on track after that little rant. We want to go to, so we're talking about this TicTac, the drones, these contradictory statements that they're all man-made technology, okay? And specifically the statement that the TicTac is Lockheed Martin, right? So you guys remember this? What a throwback. If you don't know what this photo is, I should have got the spaceship photo as well to add in the context. But for anyone who doesn't know what this photo is, this is a photo from, I think, the end of 2016 or early 2017 when To the Stars Academy started. And this was their public announcement. Okay, this was the first time we met people like Lou Elizondo and Hal Puthoff, like publicly in the mainstream, right? So you can see Tom DeLonge there speaking, and he's just about to introduce the people behind him. So from left to right, you can see Chris Mellon, Lou Elizondo, Steve Justice, Hal Puthoff, and Jim Semivan. Okay. And we're going to focus on Steve Justice because he's the one that we never really heard much from at all, really. A little bit, but not much. I think he was like the first one to leave. Also, the little bit of context I wanted to add is that in this same presentation, they pitched a photo of a UFO. Actually, I'll find it quickly because it is hilarious if I can find it, and I think I will be able to find it quickly. So basically, they pitched a crowd-funded UFO that they were going to build. That was their. I can't remember exactly the technicalities of how it all was, but it was basically like donate to us, invest in us, and we're going to build this. This was their concept design that they were crowdfunding. And I have covered it on the channel before. There was like an article where they were saying like they're going to build craft that can take you anywhere in the world in like under 20 minutes and stuff like that. And this was the photo. And as a Blink-182 fan who's always been interested in, UFOs and aliens, when this came up, I'm not ashamed to say I was like, take my money. Take it. I want to be a part of this. I love you, Tom. UFOs. Yes, finally. Vindicated. Take my money. Luckily, I was too poor to actually invest. But if I did, it would have went about as good as any other stock or crypto investment I've ever done in my entire life. So I'm glad that didn't happen. Right? But let's look into Steve Justice because this is, again, 2017. Steve Justice, the guy in the middle with no jacket on, he worked for the Skunk Works. And if we're to believe Ross Coulthart, that means this is like 12 years or 13 years after the TicTac incident in 2004. The TicTac is nearly 20-year-old technology, apparently. Yet they're trying to crowdfund UFOs off you. Seems a little weird, doesn't it? So let's hear from Steve Justice. It's a pretty interesting clip.
In 1984, I got my chance to go to the Skunk Works. I'm working on things that defy imagination. What differentiates the Skunk Works from other airplane design companies is a philosophy that was instilled by Kelly Johnson in 1943, which was to create breakthrough products in a fraction of the time and at a fraction of the cost that other companies could do.
Yeah, but who are you making them for? Who are you making them for? And you guys know, I've showed it on the channel before. If you go look at like almost any Lockheed Martin video on YouTube, like any, sort of like promotional content that they've put out, which they have done, at the end, when it shows their logo, underneath their like slogan, their literal slogan is something like, "We don't forget who we work for," or something like that. Well, it ain't us.
That philosophy created the XP-80, the prototype for the Skunk Works, and carried through a succession of airplanes that the public would recognize as the U-2, the SR-71 Blackbird, the F-117 Nighthawk stealth fighter, and even the DNA, the technologies from those programs are embedded in programs you see today, such as the F-22 Raptor and the F-35 Lightning II.
That's interesting. He's saying that their breakthrough technology is in the F-22 and F-35, which are pretty, like, you know, they're pretty awesome planes, I guess, you know, if we're to forget the fact that there's likely, you know, gravitic propulsion technology out there. If we're to stay on the realm of, like, jet engines are cool, then the F-35 is pretty cool, okay? And I think it was on X earlier today. We're actually going to jump to X in a moment. On X earlier today, someone was saying how... But I basically posed the argument, right? I said, I believe that the TicTac is Lockheed Martin technology. Firstly, because the SR-71 was built in the 1950s, obviously. But also because if you look at the shape of it, right? And then you look at the shape of like a normal plane. Okay, let's just use like a Cessna that can carry, like, you know, what, 15 people or something like that. Small plane. It's got wings, it's got like a pointed nose, and it's got a tail because it needs those to fly, right? That's how you fly. You need those things. Well, if you figured out how to manipulate space-time and gravity, and you no longer needed to fly, you could rip the wings off. You don't have to have a pointy nose anymore. That's irrelevant. You don't need a tail either. So what's left? A TicTac, right? TicTac is just the modern plane. We just don't need wings and shit anymore. Look, I'm obviously saying that in a very assertive way, but I obviously don't know what I'm talking about. But this is what makes sense to me. Make up your own mind, do your own research, of course. But let's look at what Jesse Michaels had to say. So we jump over here. He recently got in contact with Commander Fravor, who is the guy who saw the TicTac in 2004, right? Because obviously this stuff came out from Ross, and he was trying to do a bit of digging and suss out if he could get in contact with Fravor, and he did. And he says, Commander David Fravor responded to me and said the TicTac was not Lockheed Martin, according to him. He seemed very confident and matter of fact. And I'm going to read the comments and stuff in a moment. But again, this is like, I'll give the same theory and argument that I gave to Jeremy Corbell when he so confidently stated, we do not have this technology. It's like, brother, why would you know, Jeremy Corbell? Like, why would you know what technology is in like the deepest, blackest programs? And to like take it a step further, Commander Fravor probably wouldn't know either. Because if we are looking at this stuff as a breakaway civilization, like Richard Dolan says, you know, probably one of the most like crowd favorite and most liked and agreeable ufologists out there, that this isn't just like a secret government trick. This is like actually, you know, the trillions of dollars that we all know that can't go, that can't be accounted for, like every single year. Yeah, they go somewhere. And they can't be accounted for. So maybe it's another civilization. Maybe it's a breakaway civilization funneling money away for whatever reason. I mean, to go into why is probably a whole rabbit hole video we could do. But there's clearly money missing, a lot of money that could probably develop some pretty amazing things, right? But again, when you think about perspective, because you have to try and think about other people's perspectives when you look at this, otherwise you're just a caveman thinking that everyone sees the reality through the same perspective as you. Okay, we're not cavemen. Let's just grow up. Let's expand our consciousness and our awareness a little bit. And remember that, you know, even if you are a Top Gun pilot, if I was a Top Gun pilot and I had spent so much of my life in the military, in this like indoctrinated system where it's all about clearances and, you know, accolades and prides and achievements to get read into new levels, because that exists obviously in the military, right? And I'm sure Commander Fravor had to climb many ranks and rungs to get where he was. Because as far as I know, he was like a Top Gun pilot. Like he was kind of as good as it gets when it comes to the normie military pilots, okay? So you could understand from his perspective as someone who wasn't interested in UFOs, never researched it before, you could understand how reality shattering for him it would be to try and come to grips with the fact that there is another Air Force out there that is using technology that like your Air Force that you think is the Air Force doesn't even know about. that would be ontologically shocking for someone like Commander Fravor to have to accept and digest, when, especially considering the fact that like this guy was just a fighter pilot. He wasn't a ufologist. He doesn't care about aliens or UFOs. So of course he's going to be like very rigid in his belief that it can't be ours. It can't be military. I'm a Top Gun pilot. It's not ours. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think we can give him a pass on that, because I think Commander Fravor is telling the truth. He's telling things how he saw it. But I can also understand that it would be very hard for him to digest that. But I mean, we only need to go to the Don Phillips clip that I mentioned earlier, who worked at the Skunk Works and said the CIA was our best customer, and alluded to the fact that the CIA have the best Air Force, not the United States Air Force. That's a Don Phillips quote. That's not a Josh from Polarity quote. Don Phillips from the Skunk Works. It's on the channel. You can go back and look at it. All right, so let's continue down the tree here. A guy named Chris Bartel said, it's worth remembering that even highly respected military personnel like Fravor often don't have the need to know when it comes to deeply compartmentalized programs. Just because it wasn't Lockheed, to his knowledge, doesn't eliminate the possibility that it could be part of a special access program or another black project. These kinds of systems are deliberately kept siloed, and operational pilots are frequently left out of the loop to preserve secrecy. And Jesse, fair play to him. I do think Jesse's interesting, right? Because he's so, like, he's such a good scholar, right? He's such a good scholar. But he's also got a really open mind. And I think that's why he's brilliant, because it's hard to have both of those things, I think. But he agrees, said anything's possible. And a little bit of back and forth there. But someone else said there's absolutely no way he could know that unless he worked for Lockheed Martin Skunk Works. He's not privy to all the tech in development at Lockheed Martin. And this is exactly why people shat on Elon Musk when he said, I think I would know. Sorry, that was a terrible Elon accent. That's a terrible Elon accent. But you know the quote that I'm talking about, right? Yeah, I mean, it's just like a stupid thing to say. Why? Just because you have a rocket company, you think you know like Skunk Works secrets? Like, bro, it doesn't really work like that, but fair play. And Jesse, again, said totally true. There's no way for anyone to ultimately know and say anything categorically about it. But he spoke to the then head of Skunk Works about Nimitz specifically, and generally knows his shit when it comes to very advanced aviation. So, very diplomatic from Jesse, but to me, he still seems pretty unconvinced either way. And I think we all are a little bit, right? We're all feeling a little bit unconvinced either way with all of this stuff right now. Okay, what we'll do is we'll jump into the Bill Cooper video, but while the Bill Cooper video is up, I'm going to throw up a quick poll, and I want to find out how you guys are feeling now. I want to see if anything's changed. All right, so let's jump into, this is actually about a 10, 11 minute interview with Bill Cooper. It's not just about, you know, the United States having anti-gravity technology for a long time. It's a kind of a widespread interview, but it's really interesting. So I think it's going to be a cool way to round out the show. So let's check this out.
What do you think about aliens?
I don't think there are any. At one time, I thought that there were, simply based upon documents that I'd seen while I was attached to the intelligence briefing team, the Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Fleet. At that time, and even for many years afterwards, I did not believe that the government would use me in that way. I had devoted my whole life to government service. I had been in the Air Force, I was in the Navy, I was a river patrol boat captain in Vietnam. I had proved myself. I had combat ribbons with the V for Valor. There was no doubt of my loyalty to my country. And maybe that's why it was so easy to use me, because I wouldn't doubt that what I saw was real. But over the years, I've done a lot of research. And what I've discovered is there's no proof existing anywhere that extraterrestrials are real, or that have ever visited this planet, or that they exist anywhere in the universe. There is not one shred of evidence anywhere. There is lots of evidence, tons of it in fact, that there are a group of people collectively known as the Illuminati who want us to believe in some extraterrestrial threat from space so that they can cause a world government, bringing together of all the people to resist that external threat.
So you can see straight away that Bill Cooper's beliefs are really aligned with Stephen Greer, right? I mean, this is exactly the kind of thing that Stephen Greer has been saying since the 90s, that there is, well, it's not quite the same, because Bill Cooper actually says that there's no such thing as extraterrestrials and there's no proof of it. Stephen Greer doesn't believe that, but he believes all extraterrestrials are good, and that basically all this weird shit that's going on is a psyop by the United States military to stage a fake alien invasion as a false flag, so we all can unite against a foreign enemy and create a one world government. Okay, that is a plan to unite the world under a new world order to fight a fake alien enemy. That is the plan of the new world order, essentially. I think, like, again, there's truth in that, but I think I do think there is extraterrestrials, and I think, but I don't think they're out there. I don't think this is a foreign thing. I think whatever non-human intelligence or species exists here, and it has probably just as long as we've been here, if not longer. And I think when you look at all the independent testimony and cases, and go look through the history, especially like when you look at the different creation stories and religious texts, they all kind of tell the same story through a different, like, metaphorical lens. Fravor from Toxic Fart, nice to see you here, my man. He says, if TicTac was Lockheed, it was reckless to fly it amidst a military exercise. It could cause an accident between the F-18s. I think if it was Lockheed, and they know what their technology is and they know what it's capable of, I think they would be very comfortable that there's no way that's going to cause a crash. Okay, you've got some screaming jet that needs to, like, use a kilometer to do, like, a U-turn. Okay, that a jet can probably do it a bit quicker than that, but you know what I'm saying, right? If a jet needs to go like this, the bang can turn around and the TicTac can just move out the way in any direction. I don't think they're worried about a crash. But why they would do it in front of a military exercise is a great question. PSYOP, again, if we go back to, hey, Third Eye Drops, Michael, welcome, man. I'm a big fan as well, Ultra Terrestrial, and I love your channel. Thanks for being here, bro. I think it could, like the Wall Street Journal article, right, says that this stuff is military hazing. They are messing with them, and as ridiculous as that sounds, especially when we think about, like, Bob Salas and, those kind of accounts, there's just no way that was military hazing. But maybe something like what Commander Fravor saw was. Maybe. Let's keep listening.
And the first time that I saw any reference to that, I was reading some papers from the Carnegie Endowment Fund, and there was a record of a speech. It was a dinner for Viscount Ishii of the Japanese delegation, the Japanese imperial delegation, in 1917. And John Dewey was one of the speakers. And the first sentence out of his mouth, as I was reading this, I almost fell out of my chair, because this was in 1917. And he said, the best way to cause all the people of the world to come together in one world government and end war forever would be if we were attacked by some other species from some other planet. And boy, that just clicked with me, and I knew that that this is just another scam. This is the age of deception. There's no doubt about it.
Yep.
And then 8 times during Reagan's administration, he inserted almost the exact same phrase into 8 of his speeches. And it's a scam. That's...
Put it on a t-shirt, baby. It's a scam. We're in the age of deception. It's a scam.
That's what I can tell you. What they call UFOs, these craft that fly around the sky, are real. But they're not piloted by some little green guy from some other planet. They're owned and operated by the United States of America for one, the Soviet Union for another, probably Great Britain, Canada. I think the first...
The Five Eyes, right? Weird how all the Five Eyes countries are listed as having this crazy technology, and all the Five Eyes countries right now are simultaneously having a like not a financial crisis, but like the cost of living is through the roof. Everyone's struggling. No one can survive. People are getting squeezed financially, yet trillions of dollars are disappearing. That's annoying. So I have to pay $10 for a pineapple, but you just lost trillions of dollars. Maybe if you didn't lose them, I could afford a pineapple.
First really operable ones were probably manufactured in Western Canada, in the wilderness, in a place especially built to create those machines, like we created the Manhattan Project.
Wasn't the Avro car designed and built in Canada? Like that weird, like car-looking UFO, like super early concept version of a UFO. We looked at it in, like, remember when recently, when Harold Malmgren's wiki started getting deleted, and then like a day later, those UFO files got released on the National Archives? In that was the video of the Avro car being built.
And the same kind of secrecy surrounded it. So the technology is real. It's been kept secret, and it's been used to promote this concept that there's an alien threat to this Earth. The cattle mutilations I've discovered in my research are nothing more than what's left after the government does its secret tests on the low-level radiation leakage from its atomic weapons assembly plants and atomic power plants. It's a low-level radiation monitoring project. And if you look at what's missing in the cattle, you'll see that it's just as clear as day. They take the lips, they take the tongue, they take a 6-inch patch of skin, they core out the rectum, the colon area, where those kinds of things would collect. They pass through the digestive system. On female cows, they take the udder to check for low-level radiation in the milk.
Mr. Stink, thank you for being here, sir. Nice to see you. $2 from Toxic Fart says all cars are cop cars. Thank you, my man. James, this is Bill Cooper. I wish I knew the year for this interview, but I don't, unfortunately. But if I had to guess, I mean, someone in the chat might actually know, but if I had to guess, I'm going to say this interview was filmed in 2001. No. I retract. But somewhere like 90s, early 2000s is the realm that I'm going to say. And a £5 from Rob Laird. It was all government. Then, if it was all government, then why would that little lady with the headscarf from the UK in the 1950s talk about beautiful Nordic people? My man, Rob Laird. Thank you for bringing that up, because I was actually going to include that clip in today's show, but I didn't. Because that is just one of the most compelling testimonies I've ever seen. I believe that lady wholeheartedly, and that is why I think there is elements of truth to what people like Bill Cooper are saying, but I think, people can only explain things from their perspective, and no one's got the whole picture. So I think there's a lot of truth to this, but I do think there is a big truth to the existence of non-human intelligence as well, and that they somehow play a part in all of it.
Pass to the calves. And these are all grazing animals that graze on the grass where the radiation falls when it falls from the air. And it's just an incredible deception.
Evan says, I thought Bill Cooper was batshit when he said AIDS was a lab leak. Well, look at us now.
And I'm just amazed that people have fallen for it in the manner that they have, in the absence of any proof whatsoever. I mean, they cite hearsay as proof.
Well, what about all of the alien abductions?
They're not abductions. They're the results of a tremendously successful and very sophisticated mind control operation.
And, this is where, again, it's like, I don't disbelieve it, but it gets really hard to digest. Because this is what Stephen Greer says too, that abductions are covert military operations, like, probably have elements of MK Ultra, like altering perception, to mess with people as a psyop, to plant seeds, to propagate and eventually stage this alien invasion.
All of which has been in development. Well, they started working on those kinds of things since before World War II. But they have perfected them. On my website, I have a patent of a machine that can read your brain waves, can recombine them in a computer and send them back to you and make you think things happened that never happened. I mean, you can't get a patent for something like that unless it really works. You have to prove.
Michael says cattle mutilations don't make sense if it's just humans. Aliens want those tissues. I mean, the idea that cattle mutilations are purely done to just scare people as a psyop to potentially stage an invasion, a fake invasion one day, is just very hard to believe. It's very hard to believe. But if it's true, it's like, that is dark. That could be the terrible truth. And, you know, Stephen Greer actually said, we played the clip the other day. I think we saw this bit as well on Patrick Bet David podcast. Stephen Greer said that he was told by the CIA that you can't, like, when you talk about this stuff, don't say all of it because the truth is so wild that it will discredit you. If you actually say what is actually going on in this world, it will automatically discredit you because it's just so wild. That's what Greer said. And Greer already says wild shit. So then it comes back to, like, you know, the terrible truth. The truth is, like, stranger than fiction. Are we all just arguing within these little margins that are set for us by all these CIA people on podcasts? And as long as we're arguing within those margins, it's all good. When in reality, it's the Nazis flying submarines to the moon and secret space programs and 20 and back reptilians is the truth. I mean, prove that it isn't, right? Prove that it isn't.
Prove it to the patent office. It works. A patent was issued. And this is just one of the things that snuck by them that hasn't, because when people invent things like this, they're sucked up by the government immediately, and then they're put behind the veil of national security and classified, and then nobody knows about them. But every once in a while, something sneaks by them. And when you do these searches in the patent office and the trademark office and in the copyright office, you come up with some real gems once in a while, and that was one. Also, the congressional investigations into the intelligence community has revealed the existence of these programs. I mean, there's no secret about it. It's documented. Project Artichoke, Project MK Ultra, MK Naomi. You know, I could go on and on and on all day long. And you know, if you had the time in your movie, we could lay out all the documentation, which is official government documentation, and prove beyond any shadow of a doubt that it's true. But that's what it is. It's not extraterrestrials coming down. The human body cannot pass through walls or roofs.
Yeah, Albert Stubblebine.
Are through windows that are closed. You know, this is all the product of the imagination and people's willingness to believe something because they want it to be true. I don't know why they would want it to be true. You see, because if it were true, these are not friendly aliens. They're doing some terrible things to people. If I were to kidnap somebody, pass them up through the roof and take.
So that, again, that is my, you know, if I'm going to give you guys a theory on what I think is true, I'm not going to tell you it is because I don't know. But if I'm going to give you my theory is that, yes, I don't think there are space aliens out there. I think there is something to what Tim Taylor said about factions of the intelligence agency being above humans on the hierarchy of beings, and that at some level, the West, let's just say the Five Eyes countries, are compromised by a non-human intelligence, and that is what is pulling the strings. That is the reason things are not very good in those countries and don't seem to be getting fixed. In fact, they're getting worse. And that is potentially what is behind all of this weird, dark shit like MK Ultra and all those kind of things. And that might be like naive and hopeful because I just don't like it's. I think a part of me believes that. Part of me just believes that based on research, but then there's definitely a part of me that wants to see humans in the best light, and to think that we are responsible for this stuff just because we're psychos, is not nice. But you know, life wasn't meant to be nice, so who knows?
Take them somewhere and perform operations on them and take samples of semen and ova from their reproductive organs and plant thoughts in their mind and all this kind of stuff and then bring them back. Guess where I'd be right now? In prison. It's kidnapping. It's criminal. It's a terrible thing. So there's a morbid sense about all this too, as if people want to be hurt for some reason. I don't understand that. But that certainly is something that somebody needs to look at. Why do people feel that this needs to be real? What in them says, I want to be abducted and abused and kidnapped and raped and all of this stuff against my will? Because they seem to take some kind of satisfaction that this is happening. And nobody's talking about the fact that this is a terrible thing to happen. If I were to do that to you, you wouldn't be too happy, would you? But somehow it's okay if an alien does it? I don't think so. It's all bullshit. It's a lie.
I mean, he's got great points here, but I don't really know who he's arguing with. Like, I don't think anyone is praying to be abducted and probed by an alien. Like, I'm not sure what he's getting at there, but like, I get what he's saying, but it's like, brother, who are you arguing with? We all agree with you.
Lie. I've done so much research on this. I have to tell you, there's only one way this is going. There's going to be a civil war in this country. And I hope the outcome of the war will be the reinstatement of constitutional Republican government. But whenever you have a war like that, you're going to have competing factions to be the winner. And whoever really has the power in the end is going to...
Mark Vincent says he's up for it. Mark Vincent goes to sleep on his stomach every night praying.
To institute whatever kind of government they feel should be there. There are people in this country who believe that a religious theology or theocracy should prevail. Well, if that happened, we'd have burnings at the stake again, and inquisitions, and heretics, and all of these kinds of things. So that can't be allowed to happen. Can't be. Doesn't matter what my religion is. It can't be allowed to happen. There are people who want a socialist government, much like the one in Sweden. There are people who want to create in the United States what the Soviet Union had hoped to be. There are real Nazis, all of them socialists. Hitler was a socialist. So I see the future as being tremendously dangerous for all of us.
Interesting. I do want to find out the date for this interview, the year at least.
Me and many others like me are going to perform a valiant attempt to reinstate, restore legitimate, lawful, constitutional Republican government. Whether or not we're going to be successful, I can't tell you. But I will tell you that once this war starts, it's going to be terrible, it's going to be bloody, and it'll last for 10 or 15 years. That's the nature of this kind of conflict. If you look around at all these mountains around here, there's enough...
Sorry, I'll rewind it just a sec so I don't cut off what he said there. But actually, I just lost it. I just completely lost what I was going to say. It'll come back to me.
Look around at all these mountains around here. There's enough guns, ammunition, supplies, clothing, and food buried in these mountains to support an army for 15 years. And I don't think the American people realize that they're on the brink of a civil war.
Okay, it came back to me, and it's good that he got to finish saying that because it kind of adds to what I'm saying. He's talking about like there's going to be like a war, a civil war. He's saying it's going to be bloody. It's going to last 15 years and whatever. I think that there is have you guys heard the term people calling what we're seeing now a controlled demolition of society? Because now we have this AI coming in that can remove all of these monotonous jobs for us. Like this, like AI, for us to use AI as much as it can be used, society has to radically change, right? Like we can get bots and AI to do so much that people aren't really going to have to work the way that they used to. Things are going to be very different. But you can't just do that with the society we have, right? If everyone all of a sudden lives off earning money and then you go, oh, we got a robot to do your job now, so you can't earn money, or like, you know, it's going to be harder for you to earn that money now. So good luck. That's going to be catastrophic, right? So instead of a catastrophic release of all this new technology, it feels like we are getting this controlled demolition of the current structures in society to then roll in probably like an AI-based solution and a complete change in hopefully politics, but probably not. But just a complete change in the way things work, right? No major shift in like society and the way things work is ever one, quick, or two, easy. That it's always turbulent, and it probably feels like the end of the world at the time. And it's not an overnight thing. Rome wasn't built in a day. Neither was the new AI-based civilization that we're moving into. It takes a while, and first you got to knock down the old house. I'm just theorizing there, but it, you know, kind of sounds right. It works for me. Does it work for you guys? Fravor from Haru says Bill Cooper is the same guy who said that President Eisenhower met with ETs in his book, The Pale White Horse. The contradictions are real. I call bullshit. Interesting. Very interesting. I haven't read that book. It's in my Amazon cart though. So hopefully I'll read it soon. So I can't really comment on that too much, but I definitely do agree that, I mean, and according to his own great-granddaughter, that Eisenhower and some kind of non-human agreement happened. I do believe that.
You see, there are many of us who took an oath when we went in the armed forces, and we meant it. We volunteered. We weren't drafted. We care about this country. And the oath was to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And we will fulfill that oath, even if it means we die in the process of doing it. It's that simple.
And he did.
So what do you see happening in the next 4 to 6 months in this country?
I don't have a crystal ball. All I know is that the year 2000 is crucial to the plans of those who want world government, because they whipped up sort of a millennium fever, and they've coupled that with Y2K and a whole bunch of other things. Real religious people who think that this is the end of the world and Jesus is coming or somebody's coming imminently. And so there's this fever that's whipped up. I mean, everybody seems to be on the edge of some kind of hysteria. But it's all in their mind.
Yeah. You got that right, Bill. Everyone seems to be on the edge of hysteria, and it's all in their mind. And that, my friends, is why you need to go outside and touch some friggin' grass. Seriously. And Celia Witten has just gifted 5 memberships. Celia, you are an absolute legend, an absolute weirdo. And we have 5 new ones as well. So guys, if you just got a membership from Celia, make sure you say thank you. And can we get lots of love and hearts to welcome our new weirdos in the chat as well?
If you look around, you see the world hasn't changed. It's not coming to an end. This hasn't been brought about by the hand of God. It's been brought about by the deceptions of man. And the quicker people realize that and try and find out who is causing these things to whip up this hysteria, the better off they're going to be.
So there you go. That's the Bill Cooper interview. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. There was a few good comments there that I would like to get to if I can find them. But just sort of following on from, get in the comments if you've got any questions or anything about Bill. We'll touch on them quickly before we wrap the show up. But seriously, I think that comment, what he said about it is all in your mind, there is a lot. I think that comment runs deeper than a lot of us realize. Like, where you put your attention and the things that you focus on and the things that you consume literally build your reality, right? Like I've got close relatives who are not into that. They don't look into this stuff, right? Their reality is entirely different to mine. And I recognize that. And like, I don't think they're wrong and I'm not wrong, but it's like a single human has a limited perspective, right? We can only intake so much information through our senses, right? And anything else, it's like you have a threshold, you have a capacity of what you can take in, and whatever you decide to fill your capacity with is going to be your reality, right? So if you step away from this shit, if you go out into nature, go camping for a few days, you'll probably come back feeling like a different man, seriously, or woman, or a them, or a they, or a whatever, or a toaster, whatever the hell you want to identify as. That's what you'll feel like. You'll feel much, much better. Guys, thank you for hanging out tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show. Be good to each other. Keep being kind. Have some understanding. Expand your awareness. Touch some grass. And remember, the SR-71 was built in the 1950s. Thank you guys. Take care, and I will see you all on the next one.
Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.